webinar. So I'm going to spend since about 60% of you are people who are not paid students, I'm going to talk a bit about if you're planning to study for your GMAT seriously right away, how should you go about doing this? What is it that you should have? And we'll talk about what your study plan should look like. Then we'll go into the core of this webinar. We have RC and we have MSR. So it's going to be slightly longer than 120 minutes over here. And then towards the end, we'll have Q&A. Now, my goal in this webinar will be to make sure that you understand what does it take to ace GMAT RC, and then we apply those skills in MSR. So by the end of this webinar, you have this list of skills that you need to build to get to 90th percentile in both RC and MSR, and a lot of those skills actually apply to CR as well, and to other aspects of data insights as well. So I think you get a good set of skills that you need to work on, and then what would happen once you build those skills. But with that, let's get started with the first piece here. Now, if you're someone who's just starting out, and this I think applies to people who are not e-GMATers, but also e-GMATers if you've not built a study plan, the first thing you should have is a study plan, which means that your game plan as to what does it take for you to get to your target score. And for those of you who are e-GMATers, you should have seen this. This is a screenshot of the new PSP for GMAT Focus Edition, where you should know your starting scores, you should know your target scores, and you should know what does it take to get there. And that I think is really, really critical that you have that, because without it, you can't visualize your journey. And as you do that, one of the core inputs that goes into your study plan is what are your starting abilities, and so that's where you need to take a Sigma X mock, or you need to take an official mock, so that you can get your starting abilities in CR and RC. So you don't want to just be at the verbal level, but at CR and RC, in arithmetic and algebra, and in DI, if you're taking the GFE, you also want to know your abilities in MSR, data sufficiency, GI and TA, as well as two-part analysis. So if you have your starting abilities, you really know where you are and how much effort you need to put in, and where you need to put in that effort. And this is something which is what a final study plan like this would tell you. So this is a very sophisticated chart. This is an output of our PSP, or a personalized study planner. I'm going to actually do a demo of it towards the end of the webinar if you guys are interested. But again, what this shows is this person starting at a 575. They aim to get to a 705, which is 99th percentile. These are their verbal starting abilities in verbal. These are their target abilities to get to that 705. This is the time spent in verbal. This is the time spent in quant. This is the time spent in data insights. Out of the 96 hours spent in verbal, they're going to spend 58 hours in stage 1 of learning. You can really see this is stage 1, which means building a foundation, learning concepts, learning how to apply that. Going to spend about 16 hours in cementing and 22 hours in test readiness. This includes taking mock. The same thing over here for quant, but again, you see they start with cementing first. Why? Because their starting ability in quant's much higher. So having that in that map right on day 0, day 1 of your prep is really critical, so that you can visualize your prep. And again, we allow you to build that study plan for each individual. If you are an e-GMAT, you've not built it, please go through your study plan section and make sure you build that. And again, that should also translate to your subsectional plans, where here this person is starting at a 51st percentile in verbal, and that 51st percentile is composed of a 45th percentile in CR, 53rd percentile in RC. They're going to spend 2.7 weeks improving their CR to 90th percentile, and about 2 weeks improving their RC to 95th percentile or so. So all of this is going to be about 100 hours of effort, or 2.5 hours per 20 hours per week or so. So this is just some sort of a visualization that helps you understand what the journey for you would be. When would you be able to take the test? What metrics do you need to get to this 90th percentile or this 95th percentile or so? Okay, and again, it's because of this, if you look at the GCE side, we've delivered a majority of the 700 plus scores reported on GMAT Club, and a majority of the 5-star reviews that are there on GMAT Club as well. Okay, for those of you who are not connected with me on LinkedIn, you can look for me on LinkedIn or click on this button and connect with me. That we'd be able to connect with upwards of 21,000 students studying at pretty much any top B school, whether you look at the US, Canada, Europe, or India. Okay. With that, let's go right into the crux of this webinar, and we'll start with your RC ability. Okay, if you are aiming for that 90th percentile, what should be your RC ability? Let me put this short answer poll question here. Aiming for that 90th percentile, what should be your starting ability? 90th percentile in verbal, what should be your starting ability? V40 is 90th percentile, absolutely, yes. If you're aiming for that 90th percentile in verbal, which is that V40, you should aim for at least an 80th percentile in RC, and um, and essentially, ideally speaking, if you want RC to drive your verbal ability, then that should be the 90th percentile. V45 on the current GMAT, which is 99th percentile or so. Okay. Now, with that, I want to understand what your RC approach today is. I'm going to give you three options here. And let's get in a poll over here. Okay. What's your current approach to GMAT RC? The first approach is you skim through the passage, then you go to the question and you go back to the passage to make sure that you answer the question. The second is you don't care about the passage, you go through the questions first. You may actually just read the first and last line of every paragraph that's out there, but other than that, you first go to the questions overall, and then you go back to the passage. The third is you actually spend time reading the passage up front, and then you go back to the question, and if you need to, you'll go back to the passage if needed. I have about 92 students in the webinar, and I have close to 50 plus responses, close to 60 responses. Let's get about 75 responses, about 70 responses overall. So I have 61. I need 9 more responses. 64. What's your approach? Again, guys, you guys are here. Make sure that you make the most of it. All right, I have close to 70 responses. I'm going to end the poll and broadcast the results. So about 70% of you take option number 3, where you spend time reading the passage and then go to questions. You can really see, but for the remaining group, about 30%, half and half, either skim through the passage or go through questions first. My goal today would be to make sure that those of you who use approach number 3, I want to make sure that I tell you how to extract at least 2x from the passage if you do approach number 3, which this is our recommended approach as well. So you're following the right approach. I want to make sure you get much better at it so that you get to that 90th percentile ability. If you are here or here, I want to tell you why 1 or 2 doesn't work unless and until you are a voracious reader, which, by the way, if you are one, you probably won't be here anyway. So why 1 and 2 won't work if you and you've got to look at number 3. Okay, I see 6 minutes, 12 minutes. What is that? Can you elaborate on that as well, please? And Mr. Aduka, if you want to know how to take the GMAT exam online, just Google it. You'll see an article by me. So what are these times to finish RC with answers? 8 to 10 minutes. All right. So we'll address this piece as well. What does it take long why do you spend longer on RC if you do? And how can you address that timing piece? We're going to address that towards 2/3 of this webinar. So that's not the data point that I needed for now, but it's good to really see that overall. With 8 minutes, how many of you get to that 90th percentile ability in RC? Probably you don't. So just I want to take a small detour. That person who says 1 minute per 125 words, that is your regular reading speed. So that's 140, 150 words. When it comes to, and this is where the right context is important. When it comes to reading, a research report, reading for comprehension, that's about 90 words in a minute, and a GMAT RC is about 360 words on average. So you're gonna take between 90 and 100 words a minute if you want to read and comprehend the way I want you to. And when you do that, your time to answer questions is going to be about 40, 45 seconds for most questions. And those 90 to 100 words a minute will come down to about, or will go up to about 125, 130 with as you get to 90th percentile ability. So the time improvement, a lot of people aim for that speed. Don't aim for that speed. Let that speed be a natural consequence. We're going to talk about how to make that happen. But yeah, don't worry about 1 minute but 125 words and then those stats, because what you need to worry about is, are you able to comprehend? Because if you don't do that, then all of the time that you're spending, a majority of it is going to go to waste. So we want to make sure that we utilize our time really, really well. 2 minutes for a question is just too much. There's something seriously wrong if you're spending 2 minutes for a question. On an average in an RC, it turns out it's 2 minutes per question. But then when you're actually answering questions, for most questions, it has to be less than 50 seconds after you've done the time, spend the time comprehending the passage. But again, we'll talk about this later on. But let me demonstrate that to you. Now, let's look at the next piece over here. And this is something, so the self-evaluation. What level of understanding do you believe you have when you read the passage today before answering questions? So this is only for people in Approach 3, not otherwise. That's your self-evaluation. And I want to ask this question again later on once we do a couple of questions here. Okay, let's get a few more responses here. I have close to 50 responses, and that I think makes sense because about 70% of the class was in this group. Let me end the poll, broadcast the results. So the biggest group here is between 50 and 75. Very few in the 90 to 100. Between 75 and 90 is quite a few of you, and then very few in less than 50%. Okay, let's see if you agree with that evaluation in a few minutes or so. Okay, all right. So again, how will I help you get to that 90th percentile? I think one of the biggest things I want to make sure is that I help you extract most from the passage. For most of you, my claim is at least twice as much as what you do today, and I want to make sure that you read read like a manager and not like an engineer, and so you not only extract twice as much from the passage as you do today, but also just focus on the relevant things which are there, and not focus on other pieces over here. Okay. And I'm going to demonstrate this through a couple of small passages where we'll lay the foundation for GMAT RC, and then we're going to apply that to a full-length RC passage 700 level, and then we're going to apply this to a 700 level MSR passage. We'll also demonstrate how to answer questions. So once we look at these small passages, we'll demonstrate how to answer questions, and then we'll look at a main point and an inference question. And then we're going to, again, apply it to all sorts of questions in GMAT RC. Okay. Overall, you're going to really see a template for success on GMAT reading comprehension here. Now, what does it take to get to 90th percentile? I think one of the first and foremost things that it takes to get to that is having the right attitude. A lot of people, when they see a GMAT RC, and I want you guys to be candid over here, the moment they see it, if it's in a topic that they don't like, they really say, why God, why the hell do I have to worry about this particular topic and read about it? Let me just get done with it. How many of you do that? See something that you don't like and you say, why God, why? And you want to just get done with it so that you can get to other questions. Be really, really candid about it. Okay. If you have that attitude, you're going to be hard pressed to get to that 90th percentile. When you think about GMAT RC, in about 8 minutes. GMAT RC passages are very well designed passages, and but 8 minutes they tell you so much about a topic which you had no idea about. Okay. So you've got to have that attitude of getting immersed in the passage right from the get-go, even if it's an area that you have no idea about, even if it's an area that you don't like reading about. Having that attitude is really necessary, because that's going to happen in business as well. When you become a leader and you become a manager, you're going to have to read about things that you don't like, and you've got to take them head on. You cannot ignore stuff. uh, the second piece is, when people get things in front of them, there are people who don't like reading, and these people just try and skim through things, and so that they can get to questions and get done with this. You have to get over that attitude, because the only way you're going to ace GMAT RC is if you visualize information that's given to you. And we're going to really talk about what that visualization means very, very soon. So that's something that I want to make sure that you do. Okay. Now, how do you go about doing this? We're going to talk about key reading strategies which will allow you to extract twice as much from the passage. We're going to apply those strategies at an atomic level, which we call a sentence structure level. Then we're going to, within a paragraph, between sentences, as we see keywords, we're going to predict our thoughts through keywords. And then one thing that we want to make sure that doesn't happen is we don't want to be overwhelmed. How many of you do this? You're reading through a passage, you don't know what's going on, and you continue reading, thinking that the next line will tell you what the hell is going on. Okay, don't do that. I want you to get into the habit of reading slowly, and if it so happens that you can't understand what's going on, then you actually go back, reread. Don't move forward till you understand. And a lot of this gets better if you understand how do you read like a manager versus an engineer, because a lot of us, given our true nature, given how we've read things in school, we try and understand each and everything when we read like an engineer. So I'm just going to show you this note which talks about what does reading like a manager versus reading like an engineer means. There are three key points that I want to emphasize on. The first thing is, when you're reading like a manager, you have to tell yourself, I am not the subject matter expert. Okay, as a manager, you're not the subject matter expert, and I will not try and be. What it means is that I'm not going to try and understand why something is the way that is. If the author is telling me this is how things are, I'm going to take it as is. Okay, but I'm going to make sure I understand what the author is saying, so that I'm able to draw inferences from it. Okay, the author is the subject matter expert. I am not the subject matter expert. How many of you struggle with that notion where you say, I am not the expert in what I'm reading? They try and get everything. No, you are not the subject matter expert. You are someone who's trying to, who a subject matter expert is providing information to, and you're trying to get out of it, trying to understand what inferences, what decisions you can take based on what the author is telling you. Then a lot of people try and understand the mechanics of things, even when they're not given. They try and understand why things happen, the causality. They try and put in causality even when the author doesn't present it. Why? Because they think like an engineer. Focus on the why only if the author tells you. Don't focus on the why otherwise. Okay. Now, in some passages, you will get technical details, and a lot of people really try and understand each and every aspect of technical detail that's provided to you. Remember this: you're not supposed to know technical details. People from humanities background, arts background, commerce background, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, all of them get the same RC passages. They come with a difference. Each one of them comes with different set of skills. So don't try and understand the nuts and bolts of the technical aspects of it. There, you rather focus on getting the gist of those technical aspects, and then move forward, because you will not get a question about the nuts and bolts. If a passage talks about this is, a chemical X reacts with a chemical Y to produce a chemical Z, you don't have to understand that. Now, if Z leads to something, then that is the aspect that you need to to really worry about. That Z leads to something, but not Y, X plus Y leads to Z. That's something that those nuts and bolts you don't need to worry about. You will not be asked about it. Okay. Again, don't be an engineer, be a manager. You are not the subject matter expert. Okay. So, and the thing that you realize is once you try and read like a manager, you're going to be able to extract so much more meaning out of what's written out there. They're going to start enjoying GMAT RC. Okay. The most important thing, be slow. The only way you're going to save time is if you be slow and if you comprehend. Okay. ND says it's under clock pressure that the mind gets harried and loses the relaxation of proper comprehension with all logical interplay among elements registered well enough to answer the question. So first of all, Mr. ND, don't try and achieve that timing right on the first go. Ability first, timing next. And timing is a natural consequence of ability. Okay. If you play a sport, in any sport, you've got to get your technique right, and then you have to build muscle. As you get your technique right, as you build muscle memory, and as you build muscle on top of muscle memory, speed happens automatically. Okay, no one. If you look at, for those of you who follow cricket, you can really see, there are cricketers who run at 28, 30 kilometers an hour while running between the wickets or while chasing a ball. They don't practice to run hard. They practice to really build their body muscle so that they push the ground harder and so that they can take longer leaps. Okay. As you build that muscle, that running fast automatically happens. So let timing be a consequence. And please don't try and get to your target speed right in the next practice. Focus on comprehension. If you're running at 17, 18, if your peak speed is 17, 18 kilometers an hour, if you try and achieve 25 kilometers an hour right away, you're going to actually break your tendons. Don't do that. The same thing happens with you in GMAT RC. It leads to bad accuracy. It leads to you worrying about timing rather than worrying about comprehending. Does that happen with you guys? You say, people told me I've got to answer this in 8 minutes. Let me try doing this in 8 minutes, even though you're at 60th percentile ability. Don't do that. Okay. So with that, let me demonstrate all of this. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a really small passage. It's a single line passage. I want you to read it, and then I want you to answer a question based on that passage. So I'm gonna put in a yes. So I'm gonna put in a yes no poll at the bottom. When you're done reading the passage, select yes, so that I know you guys are done with the passage. When I see about 20 odd people have pressed yes, then I will. I'll actually move forward. So here's the yes no poll over here. Please don't press yes right now. You've not even seen the passage. Are you done reading the passage? So 3, yeah, press no. You can press no right now, so that way when you choose your response, when you toggle it to yes, I know you guys are done. Perfect. Thank you. Here is the passage. And as you're reading, put in your summary here in the short answer part. As it says, enter summary and notes as you read the passage. So just put in your notes over here. I'm going to mute myself for the next 50 seconds. Okay, I'm not seeing a whole lot of summary notes here, please. Summary notes in the right-hand side, not in the question and answer part. Please put in your summary notes on the right-hand side. You see one note there. I want to see others as well. Press enter. Again, for those of you who want to know the recording, you'll get it in an email tomorrow morning, IST, or if you are in the Pacific time zone at about 6 p.m. All right, about 80% of you have done with the passage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have the passage at the bottom. Here is the passage, and here is your poll question. Okay. Yep. Here is your poll question. Put in your answers, please. All right. I want everyone to put their answers in. I had about 62 people who said yes and no, and I have about 55 of those who've put in an answer here. 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll. All right. Let me broadcast the results so we can see how you guys have done. But half of you have chosen choice D, which is the most popular choice. Choices B and C are also really popular. Choice A is not as popular. All right. Let me hide this, and let's go through this. So, how was this passage and how was this poll? Put in your answers. So while you do that, I'm going to go through this. So let's start with this. Bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism considers it something. So I'm going to just pause over here. Okay. When you see the phrase bordering on the extreme, what do you infer from this? Bordering on the extreme, what do you infer from this? Author is saying it's extreme. The author is saying it's borderline, or in other words, it's not the most precise thing. Okay. All right. Let's look at the second piece. Bordering on the extreme, we talked about that. One definition of EC. When you look at this piece over here, one definition of EC. What do you infer from this when the author tells you bordering on the extreme, one definition of EC? There are more definitions. It's one perspective. Is this the author's definition? Yes, no. Is this the author's definition? No, it's not the author's definition. Okay. So when you look at this, you say, hey, bordering on the extreme, the author is saying, here's an extreme definition, and this is one of the many definitions of EC. Considers it what? A schismatic. You probably don't know what schismatic is, so let's kind of move forward. Now remember, on GMAT RC, even when there are complex words, you'd always be able to infer their meaning. Okay, it's some sort of a differentiation. So in-group, out-group differentiation. What happens in that differentiation? In which internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, and devotion to the in-group are correlated with a state of hostility towards out-group. So do I need to worry about internal coalition and blah, 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 blah? No, I don't need to worry a whole lot about it. What I need to really know is the fact really is that, hey, I like the in-group over here. I'm devoted to it. And at the same time, there is something called the out-group. I'm hostile towards them. I don't like them. And these outgroups are perceived as subhumans and or incorporation of the evil. So essentially, when you think about this, what's going on, the author is presenting an exaggerated definition, okay, and of what? Of EC. And as per this definition, there is some sort of a differentiation in which, love for your own people, which is where all of this comes in. Uh, Love for your own people, that's where this comes in, is correlated. It happens together with the state of hostility towards outside. Okay, so overall, what the author is doing, he presents a definition of EC, indicates that this definition is not the most precise. In fact, it's exaggerated, and these two things happen together as per this definition. Okay. All right. Now let's kind of look at the Q&A with this. I'm going to put in the poll over here once again, so that you guys know how you guys poll. This is how you guys poll. You should be able to see how you polled over here. Okay. So I'm going to hide this. Choice A says to criticize the concept that encourages hostility towards people not belonging to the same group. So stuff in red is what's wrong in this. So first of all, the author doesn't say, EC is bad or good. So we can't really say that the author criticized EC. And then as per the information in the passage, we can't really say that EC encourages hostility. Then it says, hey, be more hostile towards people who are not in the same group. Let's look at choice B. Choice B says to evaluate the concept of EC while enlisting its various features. Now, to evaluate something means to really figure out the pros and cons of something. The author doesn't list the pros of EC and the cons of EC, and the author doesn't, give you various features of EC. The author really presents a definition of EC, and that's all that he does. Now, what's the difference between presenting a definition versus listing the features? So if you were to really think about a smartphone is a device that makes you productive on the go. That's kind of a definition of a smartphone. Now, a smartphone has a large screen. It may have a powerful processor, a battery, a camera. Those are the various features, and a modern operating system, and so on and so forth. So again, this is wrong, which is why choice B is wrong. People who chose choice B, can you see why choice B was wrong and why you made a mistake? Okay, I want to see a few more yeses. There are 19 of you who chose choice B. Okay, please note why you made a mistake and what you're gonna take away from it, and how are you going to improve based on this. Choice C is also wrong. It says to define the concept of EC, which leads to hierarchy among social groups. Now, does the author define a concept of EC? No, the author presents one definition. It's not the author's definition. So the author doesn't define the concept. And then does EC lead to, or does it cause hierarchy among social group? No, there's no cause and effect. The passage says, bordering to an extreme, one definition of EC considers it. It's not causing, it's considering it. Love for in-group in correlation with hatred for outgroups. Again, correlation is not the same as causality. People who chose choice C, do you understand where you made a mistake? Okay. Choice D, which is our correct answer, but half the group got it right. To introduce the concept of EC, yes. Prior to reading this passage, you didn't know what EC was. You definitely know some aspect of EC. How? By presenting a view on it. So the author does present a definition. So it does an introduction of the concept. And he says, hey, this is an extreme view of what EC is. So he does present his view on that definition and on EC. So yes, this is correct overall. Now, for those of you who made a mistake, why did you make a mistake, and what is it that you're going to take away from this? So there's a multiple response question here, and I want you to tell me, why did you make a mistake? So you can choose more than one answer. Was the passage too complex? Did you not have enough time? Did you not have was it because of lack of familiarity? Were the choices too close? Did you not properly understand the passage? Did you not properly understand and visualize the answer choices? Why did you make a mistake? Let's get a few more responses here. 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to broadcast the results. So, not enough time. Let me tell you, this was a one-line passage, very short passage, and really, I give you about 3 minutes to read, minute and a half to read the passage, minute and a half to answer questions. So I think not enough time. I don't know why that would be the case, but I think I want to take on the last two, which are, I think, if you weren't able to answer this correctly, then one of the big things is if you did not read the passage properly, that the manager versus engineer piece that we talked about, or did not visualize the answer choices. Those are two relevant things. But did you need familiarity to answer the questions here? Did you need to know what EC is? Do you need to know the nuts and bolts of EC? Was that relevant to this? Absolutely not. Was this passage too complex if you knew how to read the passage? Were there any complex words here? Again, it's about simplifying. The passage may seem really complex, but it's about simplifying that, and that I think is really critical that you need to. So, for those of you, the question did not ask the meaning of those words. Which words? The passage, which words were you talking about? Which complex words? I'm going to bring the passage here. You mean ethnocentrism and all of those things? Okay. What did I say about the technical aspects of it? You're not supposed to know it. There is no way you can find that. You can figure that out. You're not someone with a technical degree in humanities. Yes, you've got to learn how to read like a manager. Structure was complex as well. Let me just bring the passage back. And let's talk about the structure being complex. Here is the passage. I'm going to hide this poll here because this is the passage being complex is the only piece I want to argue about. So what's complex about this? Bordering on the extreme. Is that a complex piece? Yes, no? One definition of EC considers it something over here. Now, you don't have to understand all of this. Okay, this is something that you don't have to understand, but one definition of EC considers it some sort of differentiation for the in-group, where love for the in-group is correlated with, hatred for the out-groups. Author presenting his view was not clear. Why was it not clear? Was it not clear because you weren't careful? Or was it not clear because one definition of EC is something that you couldn't understand as authoring, that the author is presenting someone's view, not his view? Okay. Again, think about it. All right. Here are some of the takeaways that you need to have. Let's look at another piece here. But the one thing that I want to make sure is you don't need to be an English pundit. You don't need to be someone who's been reading left and right. You need to be careful overall in answering RC questions. And you don't need subject-specific knowledge. A lot of people think, hey, I've got to really get subject-specific knowledge. You've got to know a lot about the world. No, that sometimes helps, but not in general. You don't need that. Okay. With that, let's look at the second passage. Again, the same process that we're going to really do. We're going to go through the second passage here. And I'm going to put in a yes, no poll. Few of you can select no and then toggle to yes once you're done reading. as you're done reading, type in your summary and just press enter so that it comes over here in the short answer poll. All right, about 70% of you are done. I'm going to put in here is the passage for your reference. I'm going to put in a poll question here. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Here is your poll question. You guys can choose still solving. About 20 people, if they choose still solving, that'd be great. Okay, remove broadcast results. Here is your question. All right, pretty much everyone's done. Get those answers in. 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll. No broadcast results here, so you guys can see how you guys did. Again, I have about 90 students here in the webinar. I only see about 62, 63 responses. If you guys are here, please participate. When you make a mistake, you know why you made a mistake. When you get it right, you can evaluate if your thought process is right. So either way you benefit. The only way you don't benefit is if you don't make a mistake, if you don't participate. Okay. All right. Let's hide this over here. So how was this poll? How was this poll? Easy, hard, medium? Hard, okay, easier. All right. Easy, hard. Okay. Now this is an inference question, and this question is really brings home the point about what can you infer from a passage. What is true inference? So to bring about that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put on a poll question here. Okay. So I'm going to show a statement, and I want you to tell me what can you infer from that statement. Okay. So from this particular statement, what can you infer? You have the poll here. I have about 40 responses, about 50 responses. We have 60 people who participated. Let's get to 60, 57, 58. All right, I have 60 responses. Let me end the poll and broadcast the results. Now, this is the simplest way to understand what can be inferred and what cannot be inferred. So what's going on over here is you're given a passage. The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on moods of people. Okay, based on this, the question is, what can you infer? And what the author is telling you is that, uh, essentially, the color blue, is some people consider color blue. So the author is not saying the color blue has a soothing effect on moods of people, saying some people consider color blue as soothing. That's not what the author doesn't believe, that the color blue is soothing. But he's merely someone who's communicating information to you. Can you see that? Oh, let me put in my short answer poll over here. Can you see that the difference between the color blue has a soothing effect on moods of people versus the color blue is considered to have a soothing effect? So what you can infer from this is this part over here. Okay. Okay. Now, if had the author said that, then you would infer this. Okay. Then that would have been a valid inference. Okay. What do you take away from this? Your takeaway from this is that an inference is what the author believes 100% to be true. Okay. The author, many a times, and this is something that you're going to see in your managerial life as well, there'll be people who will communicate information to you. It says XYZ says this is good to buy. Okay. What they're really saying is, I am someone who's merely a communicator of information to you. I don't know if I agree 100% with XYZ. I don't disagree. I don't agree. But I am communicating this information to you so that you can make a decision. At that point, if you make a decision saying, hey, I'm going to buy this, and that decision is wrong, then you cannot blame the person who got that information to you. Why? Because the person merely communicated a piece of information that was out there. He was not given his decision. Is that clear? An inference is what the author 100% believes to be 100% true. Another way is that when I say something's a valid inference, what I would really say is, I would bet $100 that this is true as per the author given the information in the passage. Okay. So let's look at this. EC and its canonical variants are deemed to, let me put this over here, are deemed to be. Deemed to be means considered to be intimately connected with xenophobia. So first of all, I'm going to make a short form. There's no reason to call this in its full form. I'm going to call this EC. I'm going to call this XP. Does that make sense? There's no reason to really pronounce their full name. No, this is not a test of pronunciation. So let's simplify things. Okay. So the first line says EC and its canonical variants. Some people consider EC and its variants to be closely connected with XP. What is XP? A complex attitude cum sentiment structure involving dislike and antagonism vis-a-vis the strange or the alien and everything that the strange or alien represents. So EC is closer related to XP, where XP is dislike, hatred towards the alien. Okay. Now, some sociocultural anthropologists even consider, what's the can you tell me what does even mean here? Even consider XP and EC to be opposite sides of the same coin. What does even mean here? Extreme consideration. Okay. Extreme consideration means, elaborate on that. You're on to something. No, not additional. What even means here is that some socio-cultural anthropologists consider that connection. You remember this intimate connection over here? Some of them consider this connection to be so close that they practically think EC and XP are the same things. Okay? Even means to such an extent. Okay? Is that clear now? Even is used for emphasis. Okay. Here is another example over here. Michael Jordan was the most dominant basketball player of his time. Some analysts even consider him to be the most dominant. What's the use of even over here? It's to really talk about how dominant he was, emphasizing. Okay. GDP is increasingly a poor measure of prosperity. It is not even a reliable gauge of production. It's saying even again, so it can go in the positive sense, it can go in the negative sense, depending on the how it's used. Okay. And that even piece talks about how less useful GDP is over here and how much more dominant Michael Jordan is over here. Okay. And again, we don't have an inference question here to this aspect, but there could be an inference question to this aspect. So saying there is this other group of people who consider XP and EC to be so closely linked that they are considered to be practically the same. Opposite side of the same coin means they're practically the same, but is another contrast keyword. Okay, a few voices have cautioned that this need not be the case. So there's a group which has said that, hey, that extreme closeness need not be the case. So what's going on? So the author presents information saying that EC and its variants are, some people consider EC and its variants are as closely connected to XP, where XP is hatred for aliens. Okay. Some experts take that closeness to an extreme where they say EC and XP coexist, and some other experts disagree about that level of closeness. Okay. So the author presents this new term XP and then really talks about the opinion of a few people over here. Okay. The only thing that the author presents as his own in this entire passage is XP is hatred for the alien. Can you see the difference here? This is the only thing that the author presents as his own. Everything else is where the author is presenting someone else's view. Okay. Now, remember this, the correct inference is always from the point of view of the author, which means that the author would 100% agree with. Or the correct inference is a fact given in the passage. So with that, let's talk about poll questions, how you guys responded to this one here. These are your responses. Okay. So XP and EC are different facets of the same concept. This is wrong. Why? Because this is not the author's view. The author doesn't believe in this 100%. This is the view of some experts. The author, we don't know whether the author agrees or disagrees with this view. Okay. So this is where we're talking about this line in this case. Now, is this the author's view? Absolutely not. The canonical variants of EC are intimately linked with XP. Is this the author's view? Is this the author's view? Or is it the deemed view? No, it's not the author's view. It's the deemed view. It doesn't indicate a reality. The author doesn't 100% believe in it. People who mark this, do you now know where you made a mistake? Okay. XP and EC are not connected with each other. Again, we can't really say that. That's completely opposite. XP causes EC. Is there a cause and effect relationship stated in the passage? No, we can't really say that XP causes EC. Which brings us to the correct answer. XP entails dislike towards the strange. This is something which the author presents from here to here. Okay, this is something that you can infer from it. And this is the correct answer. Those of you who got this right, congratulations. Hopefully you got it right for the right reason. But those of you who got it wrong, what did you learn from this? What is your one takeaway from this? Or in other words, let's bring in this other poll question. In definition of inference, inference is always the author's point of view. Confusing deemed view is author's view. The definition of inference. Now, had you rushed through this, could you have answered this correctly? speed reading, does it lead to, would you have answered this correctly? Had you rushed through this passage? On the other hand, if you focus on comprehension, how much time do you think it will take you to reject the incorrect option? If you focus on comprehension. On the other hand, if you focus on comprehension, how much time do you think you would take to reject the options? You focus on comprehension. How long do you think, if you comprehend this, in 20 seconds? Why? Because you know what's in inference and what's not. Okay. Which is where you need to learn how to comprehend. Don't worry about timing. Focus on comprehension. Timing is not what's killing you. Okay. And this is something which, let me just be very clear. How many of you have heard from GMAT experts that that hey, I'm going to help you get faster at things. I'm going to teach you tricks to ace the GMAT. I'm going to help you read faster. Okay. How many of you have heard this from GMAT experts or have read it on a blog? Okay. Let me just say this. There are no tricks that work on the GMAT. GMAT is a pure test of skill, which is why it's the only test in the world which has a very high correlation with success in the degree that it's designed for. So the GMAT has a very high correlation with regards to success in first year of your B school. The GRE doesn't. Neither does it have a correlation with B school nor for grad schools otherwise. The SAT or the ACT, they don't have a correlation. The Indian version of, the CAT, which is the Indian equivalent of the GMAT, doesn't have a correlation with your performance in first year. And those are tests that you can ace using tricks. But the GMAT is a test of pure skills. The only way you ace the GMAT is if you build a skill. And for the person who says, I would have never chosen the correct answer even after reading this 3 times, I don't know how I'll improve. Can others answer how can you improve on to make sure that you choose the correct answer here? Not hard work. It's about understanding what can you infer versus what you cannot infer. What is this question test? It's about understanding where is it that the author is communicating information, whereas where is it that the author is making a claim. Right? That's all that is. If you can distinguish between these two pieces, then you can absolutely answer this question correctly. Let me bring in another. Here's a simple statement. What can you infer from this statement? What inferences can you draw from this? Okay. These are the correct inferences. Wrong inferences? This is a wrong inference from this. Isn't it important for you to know, even for your own life, what can you infer when you read a piece of text? Forget about the MBA. Shouldn't you know this? when you read a stock analyst recommendation, when you read anyone's recommendation, or Google is deemed to be a good buy. Yes. Is this difficult? No. Yeah, considered means some people, at least a human being does that. Okay. Now, when you look at the passage, this particular passage, it's a translation of the same structure. Here is this passage. It's a translation of the same structure. You can read that and infer from that. You should be able to translate that and read from this. That's the skill you need to learn. How many of you are having fun or encouraged by what you're learning here versus how many of you are really saying, man, this is hard. And I don't think I can do it. Remember this. If you don't make mistakes, you're not going to improve. If you don't make mistakes, and if you don't understand why you made a mistake, you're not going to improve. And this is scalable. Okay? This is way better. Learning these structures is way better than learning vocabulary. Okay? And this is what I mean when I say 100% immersion in an RC passage. Read with intent. Okay. And when you read with intent, you will learn. And which is where when I say slow down and draw inferences while reading, you've got to develop that love. Not just about reading RC, read anything and everything that you read, develop that love for reading. Extract more information by understanding what the author is claiming versus what the author where the author is communicating. Okay. Now we're going to read a full length passage. You're going to take notes from it, and then we're going to solve this passage. Okay, are you guys ready for that? Okay, so here is what we are going to do. Notes. This is an official passage. I'll make sure I don't have my. Yep, here is the official passage. And I'm going to put in a yes no poll. When you're done reading, please change that poll to yes. So start with no and change that poll to yes once you're done reading. Let's get 20, 30 people to say no. Okay, great. I'm going to mute myself now. All right, pretty much everyone's done. That's wonderful. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to reduce this the passage so that you can scroll. I'm going to put in poll questions. Let me hide this. And I'm going to put in poll questions. Please put in still solving here. And before I show the poll question, 30 people to say still solving before I show the question. 3, 2, and 1. Here is your first question. Question 2 at the bottom. You can select still solving on that once you put in the answer for the first question. About 70% of the class is done. I'm going to give you another 15 seconds for the first question. 3, 2, and 1. Please put still solving for question number 2. All right, let me end the poll and broadcast results. This is how you guys did for question number 1. I want still solving for question number 2, but another 10 or so folks. Be great if we can get that. Please don't put choices A or D. You haven't seen the question as of now, so you don't know which choice is correct. Even I don't know which choice is correct. So here is your question number 2. All right, about 80% of the class is done. Get those answers in. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll here and broadcast the results. You can see choice A was really popular. The most popular choice D was the next most popular, and then we have choice C here. Here is question number 3. Let's get to still solving for question number 3. About 13 people have selected still solving. Let's get a few more folks. That really helps me time. All right, good. Here's question number 3. Good luck, guys. Okay, 80% of the group is done. Get those answers in. 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to end the poll. You guys did really well on this one. You can see 67% of the class got choice C. I think that is the correct answer. Really, really well. I'm happy to see how you guys are improving here. With that, question number 4, let's get to still solving. Let me remove broadcast results. Here is question number 4. All right, 80% of the group is done. Question number 4. Get those answers in. 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll and broadcast the results. You can see a lot of you got this one right as well. Let me put in question number 5. And let's get to broadcast still solving. Okay, here is question number 5. Good luck, guys. All right, 80% of you got this too. Get those answers in now. 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll. Broadcast results. Here's how you guys have done. 3 choices, A, B, and C, really popular. Choice C being the most popular. And we're going to really see how we go about doing this one. This one, I think, was the most challenging question in this entire passage. But overall, how do you guys feel? Were you able to apply some of the learnings from the first part of the session to this part? All right. How does it feel doing this? Have a lot to work on. Okay. Got 3, I guess. Good. Confident. Improving. Easier to handle. Does it seem manageable? right? I mean, yes, you may have made some mistakes on this one, but as long as you can say, okay, I think I can do this, I think this is manageable, that's what I want from this. Yes, this is an official question. This is a 700 level official question. Absolutely. And what I wanted to demonstrate with this is, what we learn from those short passages, a lot of that's applicable to longer passages, and you probably can see that. Was it an easier passage than what we would encounter? No, this is a 700 level passage, and you'll see why. You think it's easy, it's not easy. And you'll see there's a lot of sophistication. I don't want to use the word complexity because complexity is a relative term. It's different for different people, but I can definitely say this is very sophisticated. Okay. Let's go about doing this. Let me hide palette. Yes. So let's start with this. Frazier and Mosteller, the German names. I'm not going to worry about pronouncing them. F&M assert. Can you see the F&M assert piece here? So deemed to be, considered to be. Can you see the parallel? This is not what the author is saying, but F&M are saying this. Yeah, it's an F&M. The opinion belongs to F&M, not to the author. Okay. F&M assert what? That medical research could be improved by moving toward larger, simpler clinical trials of medical treatments. Okay, so there's an opinion, there's a proposal that then FNMs are putting, and they're saying that, hey, we can improve medical research if we do something. Okay, what is that something? Larger, simpler clinical trials. Currently, really important keyword. What it shows is the current practice. Okay, so this is the current practice overall. Unless per para notes are made in 3 to 4 minutes, answering questions accurately is hit and miss. Again, as I said, don't worry about timing, please, right now. Okay, let's focus on this, and then you tell me what you've learned from this. Okay, it's currently really important. It talks about how things are done as of now. Researchers collect far more background information on patients than is strictly required, which means than is needed. How much more? Substantially more than hospitals collect. So this is something which is written to emphasize how much more. Thereby, what does thereby mean? What kind of a keyword is thereby? It's an outcome, it's a result, it's a conclusion. Keywords as an outcome of this, there are escalating costs of data collection, storage, and analysis. So as a result of collecting so much data, which is the current practice, costs go up. Although another really important keyword over here, limiting information collection could increase the risk that researchers will overlook facts. This is the classical defense against the weakener. Why we are preempting some sort of a criticism. So the author is saying, hey, you may think that if we collect less information, we may overlook facts which are relevant to the study. FNM assert that such risk never entirely eliminable, which means that risk is never zero, would be small in most cases. So that risk would be very, very small. Only, again, a very important keyword in research on entirely new treatments are new and unexpected variables likely to arise. So they say there's one exception to this. Only is an exception word. Really important. Put it in your mind. When you think about entirely new treatments, that's where you need to worry about collecting so much more data, but not otherwise. Okay. All right. So what's going on over here? There's a proposal as per FNM to say, hey, we can improve medical research if you go towards larger trials. Okay, currently we collect too much data that leads to increase in costs. There's a negative of collecting less data, which is you may overlook some facts, but you can never reduce that risk. That's always there, even when we collect a lot of data. When you think about can't be removed, which means that risk is always there, and only in specific research, collecting so much data could make sense. Okay, so overall, if we were to summarize this, we have the benefits of a simpler trial. Those are explained over here. Okay, then let's look at this here. FNM proposed not only means there are going to be two things. So not only that researchers limit data collection, which is what was there in the first paragraph, okay, on individual patients, but also that researchers enroll more patients in clinical trials. Okay, so that's the second proposal over here. So first proposal was limit data collection. Second is enroll more patients, thereby, again, an outcome keyword, obtaining a more representative sample of total population with the disease under study. So thereby the conclusion, which means that if you enroll more people, you are going to get a more representative sample. What does the word more tell you? What does the word more tell you? Again, guys, questions in the Q&A pod, please. It's a comparison, it's a comparative. So when we say more representative sample, what are we comparing with? Then the way we do it today. Really important. Opinions, comparisons, keywords. 3 things in GMAT RC are really, really important. Okay, because you would have inference and detailed questions over there. Now, should you take notes after every para? I actually take notes as I read. Let me be very clear. Okay. And the reason why I take notes as I read is because I don't want my brain to be overwhelmed. So the moment you start seeing your brain being overwhelmed, pause, write down a couple of words, then continue. And trust me, you will not lose time. Okay. Principle, don't let your brain get overwhelmed. Often, researchers restrict study participation to patients who have no ailments. What does this mean? What do you infer from this? Often researchers restrict study participation. If you had read only till this time with the current method, yes, this is what's happening currently. Often is used for that as well, compared to how it's done today. Often researchers restrict study participation to patients who have just those ailments. Okay, then it's the second step. A treatment just successful under these conditions can then again means a 2-step process be evaluated, which means the pros and cons of it under normal conditions. So what are we saying about? The second proposal is to increase the size of the trial. Why? And that will lead to getting a more representative sample. Currently, we have ideal conditions. If something's successful under these ideal conditions, then we go towards normal conditions. Okay. So this part, we're talking about benefits of a larger trial. Okay. Then we have, carrying on, we say broadening the range of trial participants. FNM suggests, again, the author is very specific. What would that lead to? It would enable researchers to evaluate, which means figure out the pros and cons of a treatment's efficacy for diverse patients under various conditions. Again, do we need to worry about how will it do it? No, absolutely not. This is the benefit of enrolling a large number of patients. What would it do? It will help us figure out how good a treatment is for different set of patients under various conditions, and to evaluate its effectiveness for different patient subgroups. Okay. All right. Very technical. Don't need to worry about what it means. Evaluate its pros and cons. That's all I need to really just say. Different subgroups. I don't know. Are there subgroups by age? Are there subgroups by disease condition? Don't know about it. Don't need to worry about it. Okay. For example, the value of a treatment for a progressive disease may vary according to a patient's stage of the disease. Patients' ages may also affect a treatment's efficacy. So efficacy, let's just look at this. Okay, efficacy was here. So this is where patient's age, this corresponds to the efficacy piece, this patient's to those. These are examples of subgroup versus efficacy. That's all there is. So essentially over here, what the author is really saying is, hey, 2 proposals, let's kind of do that. Let's collect less data, let's enroll more people. And the author gives the benefit of both these proposals. Proposal 1, cost reduction. Proposal 2, we get better data on where the treatments work. Okay. So far, so good. Can you see the level of sophistication here? In this paragraph, it may seem simple. The language is simple, but the level of it's pretty sophisticated. Okay. Now, with that, let's start with the poll question. We're going to quickly go through this. I'm going to focus primarily on where you guys made mistakes. This is passage 1. 60% of you got this right. So I'm going to focus on choices C and E. Okay. Sorry. What did I do? How did I? I'm going to bring back my short answer poll. Okay, so what's the main idea? That's what it's saying. To find the main idea, we've got to really get what's given in each of the paragraphs, and we do paragraph summaries, combine them to come up with a pre-thinking of the main idea. First paragraph talks about benefits of doing a simpler trial. The second is benefits of doing a larger trial. So overall, we have a two-pronged approach by which medical research could be improved. So the author presents a two-pronged approach by F&M through which medical research could be improved. Okay, that's something which is there. So let's focus on C, D, and E, which is where you guys were confused. C says evaluating an analysis of certain shortcomings of current medical research practices. Okay, so I'm going to focus on this word over here, an analysis, evaluating what? An analysis of certain shortcomings of current medical research practices. Now, does the author talk about the pros and cons of an analysis? Does the author talk about that? No. Is there an analysis of shortcomings presented in the passage, and then does the author really say, hey, in this way this analysis is good, in this way this analysis is bad? Absolutely not. The author doesn't do that. This is what this answer choice is saying. So people who chose this answer choice, why did you make a mistake? Did you understand what this answer choice was talking about? Did you understand? People who made a mistake here, who chose choice C, because there are quite a few of you who chose choice C. Choice D is the correct option. It says describing proposed changes. In the first paragraph, the author talks about both positive and negative. Does the author present any analysis here? And then does the author talk about the pros and cons of an analysis? Let me just explain. Okay, go on. So this choice would be correct if you were to really look at, for example, in a hypothetical scenario, poets and quants analysis of certain business schools with their rankings, and you were to give the pros and cons of the analysis that poets and quants has done. If that were the passage where you said, hey, I like the analysis that poets and quants has done because it considers employability, it considers X, Y, and Z, and gives them lots and lots of weight. So that's where the pros are. The cons are, it doesn't consider these other things. If the passage did something like this, then this choice would be the correct option for such a passage. This passage doesn't do anything like that. Yeah. That's what evaluating an analysis of something is. Okay. Really, really important to visualize the answer choice as well. Not just the correct one, but the incorrect one. The more you do it, the better you would get at it. Now, I can tell you one thing. People who chose answer choice C, or people who couldn't understand answer choice C, I bet you guys also mess up in boldface questions, because the way answer choice C is written, boldface questions are written. The answer choices in boldface questions are written the same way. Am I right? If you couldn't understand what this choice is saying, you probably don't get a lot of complex boldface questions right. That's how they are termed as well. That's how the answer choices there are termed. Okay. Choice D, which is my correct answer, it says describing proposed changes in which clinical trials are conducted. So does it describe certain proposed changes? Yes. To the ways in which clinical trials? Absolutely. So this part is correct. Explaining how medical researchers have traditionally conducted research and how such trials are likely to change. Do we know that these trials are likely to change in this particular way? Do we know that F&M's proposal would be taken up and it be accepted? Is there a very high likelihood of that? The passage doesn't give us anything about it, right? Okay. Learnings from this question before we move on to the next one. How do we answer main point questions? Again, the way we did this, you take each paragraph, summarize it, and then combine those summaries to do a pre-thinking, and then compare your pre-thinking with this particular thing with what's there in the answer choices. Okay. Pushkar, hopefully you are able to follow things better. Otherwise, we'll share the recording with you. All right. I can do that later on. I'm going to actually create what this option means overall. Now, let's look at question number 2 and how you guys did as a group. But 55% of you got question 2 correct. Choices C, D, and E were really popular in question 2. So question 2 says, which of the following can be inferred from the passage about a study of the category of patients referred to in the lines of often researchers restrict study participation to patients who have no ailment. So these are the ideal group of patients. And what the author is saying is, what can we infer about the studies which are conducted on these patients? Okay. So when you look at this here, a treatment successful in these conditions can then be evaluated under ideal normal conditions. Okay. So essentially, what can you infer over here? You need, the first thing is, by itself, this aspect, the outcome of this is limiting. It's very it's very limited in applicability. And the second thing is that you can infer is, to get real world applicability, you need a two-step process where you need a follow-on study. Okay, first ideal, then normal conditions. Yeah, so that's the second thing that you can infer. Okay. Choice A is the correct option. Its finding may have limited applicability. That's what we got as the first inference. Absolutely. Let's look at choices C, D, and E. Choice C says it would be the best way to sample the total population. Now, that's not this study over here. And by the way, even if you look at FNM proposal, you can't say it would be the best way to sample the total population of potential patients. Absolutely not. It actually is the opposite. This is the ideal condition. People who chose choice D, it would allow researchers to limit information collection without increasing the risk that important variables could be overlooked. Where is this discussed? It's paragraph 1, not in the context of this this particular study. Okay. Its finding would be more accurate if it concerned treatments for a progressive disease than it concerned treatments for a non-progressive disease. This is talked about in the context of FNM's proposal, where you enroll a large range of participants. Okay. In the context of this, we are not talking about accuracy of findings. Remember, it says more accurate. Can you really talk about the accuracy? Does this passage talk about accuracy of findings at all? No, it talks about additional insights. Additional insights, whether it is very different from the accuracy of findings. Do you understand the difference between accuracy of findings and additional insights? Do you know the difference between that? What's the difference? What's the difference between accuracy of findings and additional insights? Okay, let's talk about this. Okay. Now, this score may be accurate, may not be accurate. So the score of 675 is the accuracy of findings. These are additional insights. It's not about fact. Okay. Accuracy of findings means whatever is given to you, is that accurate or not. Additional insights means there's other information that is not there in the original finding, but it also helps you get more insights. Can you see the additional insights piece versus the accuracy of findings here? That's the difference. These insights doesn't prove that this is wrong. Okay. The additional insights don't prove that the findings that were originally presented are wrong. It just gives you more information about those findings. Similarly, what FNM are saying, it tells you more about the findings of how the testing is done. It doesn't really say, hey, what the current way of testing, whatever findings come from that, they are wrong. Do you see the difference? Can I get a few more yeses? And can you really see there is no trick here? It's purely about understanding what's written out there. That's it. Let's look at question number 3. Question number 3 is also something that you guys had a very high, you guys, the hit rate was pretty good. 67, but 70% of you got this right. I'm only going to focus on choice D because that's where the other folks are. It can be inferred from the passage that a study limited to patients like those mentioned in the lines. Okay, the same set of lines we're talking about. So what it's saying is, what would be the advantage? Advantage means benefit of that kind of a study over that proposed by FNM, and it can be inferred as the big piece, which means what additional insight can you draw, which the author would 100% agree with. Okay. So essentially what it's saying is, what's the advantage of the current way of doing studies where we are restricting participation to patients who just have those ailments versus those who pretty much have all sorts of conditions. And essentially, when you look at this, one of the inferences that you would really have is that it'll be easier to analyze it. The analysis would be a lot easier. It'll be the figuring out whether something's working or not, because we're talking about ideal set of patients. That'd be a lot easier with this study. Okay. So let's look at the choices. It would yield more data and the findings would be more accurate. We're not talking about accuracy. It'll cost less. We're not talking about cost here. It would limit the number of variables. Yes, absolutely, because you're only worrying about patients in the ideal scenario. So you're not worrying about additional variables coming in, which would come in if we go by the proposal that FNM has put in. Subgroups. This is the subgroups of this is the advantage of the proposed study, not of this. So people who chose choice D, they did not read the question properly. They jumped through, and which is why they got this wrong. Okay. People who chose choice D, your corrective action is what? To read what? To read the question properly and understand, to pre-think what is the question asking and what could the answer be? What would be one correct answer? If you pre-think, you'd kind of filter everything else out. How many of you can really think that, okay, because I understood the passage properly, I knew what the answer was gonna be anyway? How many of you think of that? No? Yes? Or the gist of the answer. No one could really say this is what the answer is. No one tried pre-thinking. Good. One person did. When you understand the passage, you see a question, try doing pre-thinking. It'll help you get to the correct answer a lot faster. Which is where, had you done something like this, sorry about that, done the pre-thinking, then you would have been able to get to the answer really, really, really quickly. Try doing that. And in RC, it makes a lot of sense. Why? Because you don't have to think outside the passage. Okay. Question number 4, I think, also had a really high hit rate. Let's look at question 4. Yeah, question 4, the hit rate was about 670% again. Choice C was the only one, only popular incorrect choice. The question simply says, what's the purpose of talking about patients' ages may also affect the treatment's efficacy. And the very simple reason is that he wants to give an example of the benefit of the proposal of FNM. That's the reason why the author presents it. It's an example of how, as you enroll a large variety of participants, what additional insights you would get. That's kind of my pre-thinking even before I look at the option. Okay. I'm going to look at choice A, B. Most of you were able to reject. C, indicate why a progressive disease may require different treatments at different stages. Does the passage give you reasons of why a progressive disease requires different treatments at different stages? Does it give you reasons? Hey, here is reason 1, here is reason 2, here is reason 3. No, it doesn't. Okay. And choice D is in line with our pre-thinking. It's an example which means illustrate a point about the value of enrolling a wide range of patients in clinical trials. So what's the benefit of it? Which is correct. 70% of you were able to do that. Okay, choice E is actually opposite of what's written over there. Okay. So far, what have you learned? What's your takeaway from this? What's the takeaway from this? The engineer or the manager approach really works. Identify what the author is saying. Yes, immersive reading is really important. Manager approach and pre-thinking. Okay, good. All right. So let's look at question number 5. Question number 5 is the only question where I think many of you faltered. It's a global detail question. It says, according to the passage, which means it's detail, which of the following describes a result, which means outcome. Result means outcome of the way in which researchers generally conduct clinical trials. Okay. So that's really important. So here we have two different proposals that we're talking about. So what's the outcome of the current way of doing things for each of this? Okay, in the first paragraph, what we really say is lots and lots of data is collected. That results in additional cost. Money is wasted. Okay. The second is we only conduct this in ideal conditions and we have to go do a second trial. The result is applicability is limited or you have to do a two-step process. So either one of these could be my answer over here. Okay. Choice A in this is the correct. The expense resources on storage of information likely to be irrelevant to the study they are conducting. That's my correct answer. Let's look at choice C. Lots and lots of you chose choice C. They avoid the risk of overlooking variables that might affect their findings, even though doing so raises their research cost. Okay. What does avoid mean? I avoided something. What does the word avoid mean? You did not do. If you avoided a certain road, you did not go on that road, right? If you avoided falling, which means you did not fall. If you avoided some person, which means you did not meet that person, right? Now, the question that I have to ask, let's go back to the passage here. Do they avoid the risk of overlooking variables that might affect their findings? Although limiting information collection could increase a blah, 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 FNM contend that such risk never really eliminable from research. If that risk is never entirely eliminable, do they avoid it? It's never entirely eliminable. Is there anywhere in the passage that they really say that they avoid it? Forget about trying to avoid. By the way, we don't even know that's why they collect more information, because they want to avoid this. Do we know why they collect so much information as per the information given in the passage? Do we have the reasons? No, we don't. Okay. So which is why a lot of you chose choice C, but choice C is wrong. Why? Because the risk, despite them collecting so many variables, it still exists. Okay, the causality is not discussed in choice D. Because they attempt to analyze too much information, they overlook facts. Again, this is not discussed at all. Okay. All right. So we've already seen this. Your learnings from this. What have you learned from this trials, from the session so far? Read like a manager and comprehend. Don't infer what's not stated. Absolutely. Understand what the author is saying versus what someone else is saying. Okay. Now, what we are going to do, skill building over tricks. Absolutely. Okay. You've got to apply this to get to that 90th percentile ability. That's really, really important here. Okay. And to be able to do this, I think one of the other takeaways is don't read fast, take notes. Please, please, please take notes. And as you take notes, you will take longer, but focus on achieving comprehension. Please focus on doing that, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to improve consistently to that 90th percentile. Okay. Now, how many of you are wondering why the hell should I read slowly? It's a time test. And the thing which is there is, because reading fast doesn't work. It doesn't even get you time. Let me be very clear. Here is what happens when you read fast. And this is exam environment, and those of you retakers have already experienced this. You read the passage, you spend 3 minutes reading the passage, and then sorry. If you read slowly, when you get to a point where your comprehension improves, because you're reading slowly, because you now understand sentence structures, because you now recognize keywords, because you now are able to distinguish what is the author saying versus when is the author presenting, you'd be able to read most passages within 3 minutes. Most passages are about 340 words or so. And when you do that, you'd be able to answer a question in about a minute, which means you get done with the passage in about 7 minutes, which I think is phenomenal, because your hit rate would be really high. There are some passages that are going to be really, really challenging. There you will take about 4 minutes, but usually if you do a good job comprehending those passages, the questions on those passages are usually really easy. Again, you'll get done with about 7 minutes or so. On the other hand, people who do speed reading, they spend about 2 minutes on the passage, or some of them even spend a minute and a half. Then what they do is, while answering questions, they do a lot of back and forth between the passage and question. The hit rate is bad, and they still end up spending 8 minutes. Why? Because they're doing that back and forth. So you don't save time, you actually don't achieve that accuracy, you don't achieve a high score, you end up wasting a lot of time. Many of you have probably done this. You don't comprehend this way. You still take up 8 minutes. You still don't get very many questions right. Your productive time, which is percentage of time getting answers right, when you do that speed reading, is usually about 50%. Whereas when you actually focus on comprehension, you can get to a productive time, which is about 85 to 90%. Okay. Here's a guy who scored a V47 recently, last month. He says, I don't think you should focus on speed in RC, rather focus on understanding the passage, because even if you read the passage quickly, it wouldn't matter. What would help you in answering the questions correctly is an understanding of the passage. One of our former students, Anastasia, says, read all the text, not just the first and the last sentence of the passage. As long as you understand the passage, it will only take 30 to 50 seconds. Read with what we call as the SC hat. Okay. Now, how many of you have the energy to do a multi-source reasoning question? Extend this to an MSR. Not today. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do a yes/no poll so we get more representative data. Otherwise, I'm getting anecdotal data. And when you do MSR, what you're going to really see is how does it build on what we've done so far here. MSR, yes, no. I'm going to remove broadcast as well, so you're not biased by what others are saying. All right, I just have 30 responses so far. I've got 55 students here. So let's get to at least 40 responses, 32, 33. 35, 36. Okay, let's get to 40. 38. Broadcast results. I'm going to end the poll. This is where we are. We have 65% of you who really want to do this, and then we have the remaining who don't. So here's something that I'm going to do. Before we go to MSR, I'm going to lighten the mood slightly. I'm going to talk about your study plan, and then we're going to do MSR. Okay. So that's something that we will do. So let's just go forward. So that way you guys know what you need to do overall. Already done this. So let's talk about your study plan here very, very quickly. And I'm going to bring in another share pod. And what I'm going to demonstrate through this share pod is how do you build a personalized study plan. So you should be able to really see this for those of you who've not done that. So let me share my screen. So you should now be able to see my screen. Perfect. Okay. So for those of you who don't know how to get to this is something, if you're an e-GMAT, you can get to from plan. You see focus study plan, or if you're a GCE student, this is where you'd see a GCE study plan. If you're a GFE student, this is where you see. I'm going to talk about the GFE planner is new, so I'm going to share the GFE planner. So I'm going to create your study plan. Let's say I'm going to share a study plan for someone who wants to go from 575 to target is, let's say, 695 here. So this is target, which is 98th percentile. I'm going to do a starting score as 565. Yeah, I'm going to really say, hey, this is an MBA.com not a Sigma X mark. I can do that. So this is where you can really see it. It maps this out and say you're going from a 56th percentile to a 98th percentile. Then it's going to ask your sectional scores. I'm going to take someone who's reasonably strong in verbal. So I'm going to take someone 78, 79, about 78 and 78. Something which is there. Now we're going to really get your target sectional scores here. Okay, so it analyzes this and it says this is what you should aim for in quant, verbal, and DI. So this is where it creates an optimal path. I'm going to create a slightly different split over here. I'm going to aim for something where, actually, let's just take this one now. Okay, I'm going to take that. And then it'll create a journey where it says, okay, how much time do you need in verbal, quant, and NDI? It'll tell the number of hours that you need in each one of these, in this case, and what scores are you aiming for? What kind of improvement are you looking at in this case? Now it'll look at your subsectional scores. So let's say your verbal ability is 51, your CR ability is 51, your RC ability is 48. Then based on this, it'll create your milestones for verbal. It'll tell you how much time you need in CR, and in RC, I'm going to accept that. It'll do the same thing on quant. Let's say you are at a high ability in arithmetic, lower ability in algebra. It'll also get you quant milestones based on this. Okay. Let's accept that. And again, arithmetic is a lot bigger than algebra, so that's where this comes in. Then you put in the same thing over here, put in your starting abilities. So put in slightly higher here, and then it'll do the DI milestones as well. It'll get you all of that. When I accept that, then based on this, you get the times. You also see the stages where you have to spend this time. You get the scores, and then you get the subsectional abilities. Then you can put in your time commitments here. You can also change the sequence of starting. We always recommend you do quant first, verbal then, or verbal first, quant then. And then you can put in your time. If you want to put in your day commitments by the day, you say maybe Monday I don't have as much time. Tuesday I can put in 2 hours. Wednesday put in 3 hours. Thursday I can put in 3. Friday I can put in 3. Weekends I can probably put in 4 hours on a Saturday and 6 hours on a Sunday. You can really do all of that. So set this. You can put in your start date, and again, accordingly, it will tell you when can you take the test. Okay, accept that over here, and again, you have a prep plan with all your milestones. Here is your CR plan. In this case, your quant plan. You can expand that, and then your GINTA plan, and you can really see when are you starting one versus when do you end one. In verbal, you can really see start with master comprehension, then go towards CR. You're going to spend about 41 hours going through the CR course, then about 6 hours doing cementing. Do the same thing in RC, then you're going to spend about 13 hours to get test readiness. You're going to do the same thing in quant here, then the same thing in DI. Again, all of this you can get within the first day. How many of you built a plan like this for you? How many of you, first of all, how did you find it? And how many of you have built a plan like this? How many of you built a plan like this, and how did you find the study plan? You've not, okay. So start by building a plan. Make sure you take a diagnostic test, okay? Okay. So ensure that. Now, for those of you who need to go, I will also tell you what you need to do next. So yeah, if you're an e-GMAT, please build it. Go according to this. So if you're an e-GMAT student, you want to make sure you get through your RC course, starting with the foundation concepts, which tell you the reading strategies. Whatever reading strategies you talked about, you do that. Then you go through the main point concepts, then you go through the inference files, then you go through the detailed files and through the structure concepts, and go through all the application files. This is just the learning part of the course. You have about 20 passages here. And then you want to make sure you do cementing in Scholaranium. So let's get to it. And you want to make sure you do cementing here. And the metrics that you're looking to, if you want to get to that 90th percentile, is around the hard. You're looking at about 70th percent accuracy in hard questions. This guy was at about 97, 98th percentile. Medium questions, you want to look at almost perfect accuracy here. And easy questions actually be pretty much perfect overall. Yeah. If you are someone who's going through the free trial, if you want to really just figure out, does the free trial work for you? So let me just go through this. So you'd have access to free trial. This guy's a paid student or was a paid student, so he doesn't have access to the free trial because he has access to paid courses. Make sure you go through the main point files here. You have some files in the free trial that are available for you. You have some algebra files over here as well. And if you want to understand MSR, which again is an application of RC, you have a few files in MSR. For those of you who are GFE, you have a super elaborate course for MSR. This is, we talk about what does it take to succeed in MSR. We talk about MSR for CR type passages, for case studies type passages. We have advanced case studies and then conditional data sets in MSR. All of these, have full MSR passages here, and we teach you how to apply the concept. Similarly, in two-part analysis, that also helps you do better. We start with the inference type questions, then we go into CR type questions, conditions type questions, and advanced visualization. Same thing with quant. You have a foundation, and then you have advanced quant over here. So again, lots and lots of reinforcement over CR, and again, GI and TA. It's a very, very elaborate course here. With lots and lots of learning activities that you would see. Okay, so make sure you do this, but again, verbal, quant, and then DI. For those of you who are doing this, don't go into DI right away because you won't have the foundation for DI. All right. So with that, do you want to go towards MSR now? Want to go towards MSR? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first do the same way. We're going to solve a question. In MSR, you get 2 tabs, okay? And you have information about one particular piece in 2 tabs. So tab 1 is this, tab 2 is this. I think it's extremely challenging to read it this way. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share both the tabs in a single notepad. Here is a single notepad. I think it's a lot better to do it that way. So tab 1, just one second. Environmental scientist is where it is, tab 2. So I'm going to mute myself, take about 4 minutes to read this, put in your notes here, and then when you are done, tell me when you're done. I'm going to put in a yes, no poll here. Select yes when you are done. I'm going to mute myself. You have about 4 minutes to read this. And yes, thank you for putting in no right now. Thank you for saying no. Please put no right now because you guys are not done. Thank you. All right, but half of you are done. What I'm going to do in this is, how many of you have understand the format of MSR questions? How many of you have solved an MSR question or a two-part question for that matter? Okay, positive. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the format of the question is slightly different. So I'm going to show how the questions are. And then I'm going to show how we are going to do this. Okay. So here is the first question, that is an inference question. And you're given a question stem and you have three statements here. And for each of these statements, you have to choose implied versus not implied. Okay. So what I've done is I've translated this into a question such as this over here, where you have, so I've translated these three answers into six answers. Okay, so you have three choices, the same three choices. One says implied, the other says not implied. So implied, not implied, implied, not implied, implied, not implied. So that's how you can choose this, and this is the multiple response. So which means you can choose three out of these in this particular question. Okay, does that work? Can you see how you would the mechanics work? Yes, no? Okay, so you have to choose three out of these. So the question is there, the answer is there. So we won't need the PowerPoint for this. That way I'd be able to put in the poll here. Okay, so I'm going to remove this from this point. So here is the MSR and here is the passage. So you guys can read the passage. Here is the first question. I want you to choose three in this case. Remember, you have for each statement, you have to choose either implied or not implied. If most people are done, I'm going to give you another 15 seconds. Please put in your answers. Three, two, and one. Let me end the poll. I'm going to broadcast the results. Here is how you guys polled. You can really see for the first statement, 60% of you think that's correct. It's implied, 41% think it's not. The second statement, I very similar number. For the third statement, we clearly have a majority of you, an overwhelming majority thinks it's not implied. So that's good. That's really good. Now remember, you get this right if you get all three correct. I'm going to put in the next poll over here. Here is question 2. Question 2 is the same thing, justified or not justified. Please read the question stem and then select one of the options. I'm going to mute myself again. All right. I'm going to give you another 15 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll. I'm going to broadcast the results. And what I can see is for 2 questions, you've done a phenomenal job in this. For 2 statements, for the first one, I can still see a split jury over here. And so we're going to really see that. Let's go to the next poll question here. And MSR is a lot of fun. Here is the next poll question. This one is an MCQ. Okay, so only one choice over here, which is why you don't see a multiple response, just one choice. I'm going to mute myself now. This is again a multiple response. You have to choose one for each. Make sure you choose one. All right, get those answers in. I have 18 people with statement 1, 18 with statement 2, 18 with statement 3. Perfect. Let me end the poll and broadcast the results. And here again, clear statement 1, everyone's gotten an the unanimous agreement on statement 1. Statement 2, not a unanimous agreement. Statement 3, definitely not a unanimous agreement overall. Okay. Before I go to the passage, how did this feel compared to an RC? Good, better. I can see some of you got this really, really well. Easier, good. A bit more fact-based, yes. So one thing that you'd notice is it's a lot more fact-based. At the same time, it is also a lot more. You've got to understand the answer choices. You are more focused. That's really good. If you're more focused after 2.5 hours, you'd really do well. Okay, the answer choice is slightly more tricky, and you've got to be sharp here because you have to take a stand on each of the answer choices overall. So that's something which is there. So I want you to tell me if you got all three in question one right, because there are no partial points for getting 2 out of 3 right in any of the question. Okay, so any of the questions you don't get 2 out of 3. But again, this is fun. This is another way of RC. Were you able to apply the same strategies that you had in RC over here? Okay, that's good. And I want to see more and more of that happen because you've got to build on CR and RC over here. All right. So what I'm going to do in this is I'm going to kind of do a short circuit here in many ways. And I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to analyze this. How many MSR questions are there total? 20, about 3. You're most likely going to get 80% of the time you're going to get 1 MSR passage. Let me say this. Okay. So here is our first question. Okay. Now the Gassberg mine. Let's talk about this over here. This is how you guys did. Okay, you guys know which one you chose. Is the Gassberg mine that's there, which is the largest mine in the world, as per the passage, is that a load mine or is that what's the other kind of mine? Placer mine. What kind of mine do you think this is? Load or placer? It's a load mine, right? If it's a load mine, then what can you infer over here? Are chemicals used to extract? Are chemicals used to extract? Yes, absolutely. This is implied. For those of you who made a mistake on this, why did you make a mistake? Those of you made a mistake who chose not implied, because about 47% of you chose not implied. Because it's given it's a large mine, did not get properly. You did not infer that it was a load mine. Okay. Again, reading the question is important. Okay. The Gassberg mine processed approximately 130 kilograms of raw ore for each of this. Okay. Now, can you infer that? We're given this piece over here. On average, unlike placer deposit mines, modern commercial load deposit mines are massive operations, some displacing. No. On average, such mining operations process approximately 130 kilograms of raw ore for 1 gram to produce 1 gram of pure gold. Whatever is true on average, can we really say that that is going to be true for this particular mine? Over here, can we say that? Whatever is true for load mines in general, can we say it's true for this particular mine? Yes or no? No. So this is not implied. Remember, this is the largest mine in the world. What you're given is, on average, load mines do this. This is the largest mine. Can you really say this is going to do that? Absolutely not. You cannot put $100 over there and say that. Okay. Similarly, can you say that Gassberg mine is located adjacent to a river? Absolutely not. Load mines, we don't know where they're located. Okay. So implied, not implied, not implied. That's the correct answer. How many of you got this right? And let's see how you guys polled over here. Again, I'm short circuiting the process. I'm not going through the passage explanation. But the first one is where lots of you made mistakes. The second one, 10 and 6. So many more got this right. The third one, a lot of you got this right. But the second one also, many of you made mistake, and you really said, actually, the second one, only 35% of you got it right. So overall, how many of you got all three correct? I'm going to put in a yes, no poll here. If you got all three correct, then select yes. If you got even one wrong, select no. If you got all three correct, select yes. If you got even one wrong, select no. And that's where the precision in RC is really important. Okay, why is 2 wrong? Why is 2 not implied? What do we know over here? The load mines on average process 130 kilograms of raw ore to produce 1 gram of pure gold. This is an average number. Okay. If I tell you internet companies on average earn 15% profit on their sales, does it mean that the largest internet company earns 15% profit on sales? No. In the same way, if load mines on average process 130 kilograms of raw ore for 1 gram of pure gold, does it mean that the largest mine would do that? No, absolutely not. And you can really see how MSR actually sharpens your prowess in CR and RC as well. Okay. Let's look at 2. For each of the following, select justified if it's a justified inference on the basis of information provided. Otherwise, select not justified. So what it's saying is, given a piece of information, if you can justify the statement, each, which means every load deposit is located on a river upstream from a placer deposit. So which means every load deposit leads to a placer deposit. No, we can't say that. That's not justified. We know placer deposits come out of it, but every load deposit has a placer deposit. Can we say that? Absolutely not. Let's look at choice B, or number 2 statement. Some load deposits were created by placer deposits building up on a location over time. Does the passage say that placer deposits lead to load deposits, or is it the opposite? What does the passage say? It's the opposite, so not justified either. And placer deposits are likely to be, there's a high chance, within the paths of present or former rivers. Absolutely, that's what the passage, that's justified based on the statements. Okay, so no, yes. Let's see how you guys did over here. MSR Q2. First one, it's a split. You guys did not look at each. You did not really just say, why is 2 not justified? Can a placer deposit lead to load deposit as per the passage? How is a load deposit created? When ore comes from the bottom of the earth and is exposed and comes up. How is a placer deposit created? When a load deposit is there at a river and the river takes it forward. Can placer deposit create a load deposit? Absolutely not. 2 says some load deposits are created by placer deposits building up on a location over time. No, absolutely not. Let's go back to yes, load deposits can create placer. Can placer deposits create load? So is 2 justified? Okay, how is first not justified? Let's go back to the passage. Really important. Where is my passage here? P4 MSR. Let's look at this. These lows deposits exposure to weather causes gold to be released from the surrounding rock, transported by river in form of dust or flakes. Okay. When a stream carrying gold slows, the gold collects in pockets of sand. Okay, that's how placer deposits are done. Okay. Is that clear? This is how placer deposits are made. Yes. Now, does it mean if you have 100 lode mines, there will be 100 placer deposits? No, right? Okay. This is what this answer choice is saying. Each lode deposit is located on a river upstream from a placer deposit, which means that if there are 100 lode deposits, there's a river and then there's a placer deposit over there. Okay, again, visualizing the answer choice is really, really important. You can see that same core skill applied to the next level over here. e-GMAT matters. Where do we teach this aspect over here? If you're an e-GMAT student, only, all, each, most, where do we teach that? CR, inference module. Your inference module is really, 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 really critical. Not just for CR, not only for RC, but also for MSR and TPA. That inference module becomes, and now we didn't think of, so when Payal created the inference module, she just researched all of the official guide for GCE and she found that these things are tested. But they'd be tested to this extreme in MSR and TPA. We did not think of that. But again, for those of you who've gone through that inference module, which is the largest module in the entire verbal course, you can now see the value of this. That visualization applies here really well. Okay. Which of the questions can we answer based on this? Most of you, I think many of you got this right. Let's just look at this over here. This was an MCQ. MSR Q3. 56% of you got this right, which is, we can only talk about the environmental damages attributable to mining placer deposits. We can't talk about what are the principal forms of environmental damages attributable to chemical used to from raw ore, which are lode deposits. How much raw ore did the average lode deposit mine process daily? We don't know of that. Also, can we answer this question? Can we answer this question? How much raw ore did the average lode deposit mine process daily? Let's go and look at our passage here. What we are told over here is some displacing and processing up to this of raw ore per day. Does the word some means you can say average? Huh? Does some mean average? Those of you who chose this, you guys made this translation? Okay. But can you also see this is the kind of text you are likely to read when you become a manager? And you should be able to draw the right kind of inferences from that text. Okay. We don't know what is the total quantity of annual gold of gold mined in the US. the total annual quantity of gold. Let's look at number 4. And again, if you have doubts about any one of these, you can write to me. I'll be happy to create a video solution over here. This is how you guys polled. So most of you got this right. Placer deposits are not larger than load deposits. It's very, very simple over here. Mining placer deposits sometimes has environmental impacts beyond the habitat of this. This is yes, they have. How do we infer that? And this is again a very, very typical CR inference here. We see this. The primary impacts of placer deposit are A and B. Okay. When we really say the primary impacts are this means that there are other impacts as well. Otherwise, the author will not use the word primary here. Okay. Which means sometimes there are environmental impacts other than this. Okay. Gold production from placer deposits makes up only a few percent. And this is a tricky one of total production primarily. So this part is true. Okay. When I look at this part is true primarily due to increased quantities of gold being produced from lode deposits. Now, is that true? The answer is no. Let's look at this. Thus, despite an increase in net gold mine, placer deposits now account for only a few percent. Why? Because of the fact that the quantity of gold mined has decreased. It's not because there is a lot more lode being mined, but it is because we are finding less and less of placer because we've exhausted that. Okay. Why? Because as the readily accessible deposits have been exhausted. So can you infer this? The answer is no, you can't infer this. Okay. Let's get to this question that I'm going to talk about the previous question. How many of you got this one right? Let's put in a yes, no. Bang, 3 on 3. That's good. Let's put in a yes, no poll here. How many of you got this? Okay. 50, about half of you got this right. I have 3 more people who responded to this one. I want to get them their answers too, but yeah, the answer is half. Now let's talk about why is 3 not inferable. Let's see what 3 is saying. It's saying that placer makes a few percent. We know that primarily, which means the primary reason is because increased quantities, because lode mines are producing, lode deposits are producing more. Is that the primary reason, or is it because we can't find enough placer deposits? What's the primary reason why it makes a few percent? As per the passage, let me bring in the passage once again. Because placer is already exhausted. You can see this over here. Readily accessible deposits have been exhausted. Okay. Thus, because they are exhausted, that's why we have very low percentage. That's why the usage of thus. Again, passage structure. Does this answer your question? Those of you who were saying, why can't we infer this? Okay. Very, very similar to if I were to really say, okay, if in reality, okay, I want to get a notes pane here. If in reality, if the truth is, or if the factual piece is, and if you tell me a statement, now the first part of this is correct, but the second part of this is wrong, and because the second part of this is wrong, the entire statement is wrong. That's what this answer choice is doing. Does that help? Is that clear why the statement's wrong? In this one was correct, by the way, question 3. All right, so what did you learn about MSR? What did you learn about MSR? Basically RC, but with 2 passages, yes. That's one form of it. This is the case study form of it. There's conditions, there's quant, lots and lots of kind of MSRs as you saw on in the course. No partial credits, yes. What else? Looks easy but tricky, yes. But then if you sharpen your core skills in verbal, your core skills in quant, then you can, I mean, you do well in if you're able to do well in MSR, you're going to do well in verbal, really, really well in verbal. What percentage of GMAT focus would be MSR? So 1/3 of GMAT focus is DI, and about 1/5 of DI is MSR. Yes, that's a great point. Same reading methods that you need to apply, but don't use your own assumptions while interpreting the meaning. Yes. Again, really important to read properly, really important to visualize properly, really important to reject answer choices with 100% confidence. And when you don't have that, visualize again. So MSR isn't in CR section. No, CR is a separate section in verbal. Now there are CR skills that are used over here, which is why when you look at, and which is why when we created the MSR course, you have passage types. So let me share this. Which is why when you really see the MSR course, this is the MSR course, you guys can navigate to it by going to data insights and MSR. You have critical reasoning as the first module. Case studies, this was the case study kind of stuff. You can see the application of CR here. And then you have conditional data sets as well. So in this, you have 4 different kinds of MSRs. And overall, you have close to 30 case studies in there. This is just the learning part of MSR. When you go to Scholarinium for DI, you again have a bunch of passages. And then in mocks, you have another set of passages over here. You can see the number of questions in MSR. You can see the number of questions in Scholarinium over here. And we're constantly updating this in this case. By the time we reach the middle of December, you'd see about 450 questions. And then you have about, you to get another 200 questions back once the mocks are done. And for those of you who want to take a SigmaX DI mock, you guys can go over here, go into GFE and take the mock. Now, for the student who's taken all the GCE mocks, so which is why these mocks are not available. But for you guys, that would not be the case. Okay, so you stop sharing. Okay, again, same skills. You still have to do pre-thinking. You still have to do visualization. You still have to read properly, and it's only then you can get to that high GFE score. The skills between GCE and GFE, they're very, very mappable. There are certain parts which are not there, but 80% of the curriculum is the same in this case. So start with your study plan. Make sure you put your energy in the right direction. So if you are an e-GMAT, you add to that list of 700 plus scorers, and help us get to 70% from the 60% overall. And hopefully, as you get there, you give us a 5-star review in this case. And one thing that I would really say is our commitment to GFE. We put upwards of 15,000 hours building this. Our commitment is to give you the most comprehensive offering. We already have the most comprehensive offering. This is as of today. We are the only company that has a study planner, that has such comprehensive courses, that has committed to providing full-length mocks. Same deep analytics that you see in Scholarinium for quant and verbal, you'll have that over here. And of course, the pricing is phenomenal as always. So And one of the other things which is there is our DI courses are the only DI courses that have learning videos in there. No other company is committed to providing proper learning videos. Okay. With that, go focus on learning so that you minimize these mistakes and you get to a better score. Start with the master comprehension course, learn how to deconstruct sentences, and build those foundation learning concepts so that you can do well in RC, in CR, in TPA, in MSR, and start with the free trial. Okay. Questions that I can still answer. I'm going to share the PDF with you. It is the session PDF. If you have any other question, I'd be happy to address that. Here are a few of the debriefs that you guys saw. And yeah, feedback on the session would always be helpful. Thank you very much. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can connect with me on LinkedIn overall. Okay, and we'll be sharing the recording. It will be there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. your time. Okay, and check the free trial out. And for those of you who've not purchased the course, we have a deal going on this weekend. Make sure you make use of that deal. And if you are interested, you're able to leverage that and get a product that can help you push your target score. If you are an e-GMAT or you need help, write to me. You know how to reach me. And if you're in touch with one of other strategy experts, hopefully you have much more clarity on how to go about approaching this. One thing that I would say is, guys, focus on learning. Please, please, please focus on learning. You focus on learning, the score will happen automatically. You focus on the score, you will not learn and you will not get that score. Okay. With that, as I say, good night. For those of you who are in India, for those of you who are in the US, hopefully you still have some part of your afternoon left, and you still have the energy to do other things on your Saturday morning. Okay. Personal background in terms of education. It's how do I say it in a few words? So I'm an engineer by profession, a very, very hardcore engineer for that matter. I did my undergrad from NIT Calicut, then I did my master's. I was one of the GATE toppers. I was one of the top 40 rankers in GATE, which is an Indian equivalent to a technical GRE, not the regular GRE, but a technical GRE. Then I did my master's from IIT Delhi. It was a master's degree sponsored by Nokia Germany. We're talking about the year 2000. Then I worked for Nokia, built cell phones that you guys use today about 20 years back. The stuff that we built was on a 5x4 board, but we were still building the same 4G and 5G systems. In that case, I did that for about 4 years, realized whatever I was building, I didn't know if it would ever see the light of the day. So I went for my MBA. Then post my MBA, I worked in business development and building new businesses for Honeywell. Did that for about 5 years, had about 5 patents at that time. And then I realized, I want to do something of my own, which is when I started e-GMAT with 2 other partners. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can really we did a couple of sessions with our students where we talked about, they wanted to interview us. The e-GMAT story, you can really look at that. As a company, we are very, very tech focused. Till date, we've invested about $10 million in building our tech platform as well as building the content for it. Okay. So hopefully that helps you. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being a student and thank you for putting in the effort. Okay. All right, guys, with that, happy learning, and I will see you guys on egmat.com and in the next session. Again, also for those of you who are e-GMATers, we have the next coffee session next Friday morning, 7 a.m. IST. And then, as promised, Payal and I would be working on cementing sessions and making sure you get them as part of the course. So all of that would be included. Thank you and have a great day.